There's something almost magical about walking through the ruins of an ancient city, feeling the weight of history beneath your feet, tracing the outlines of streets that once buzzed with life thousands of years ago. These places weren't just built to last, they were engineered to defy time itself. Think about it. While modern skyscrapers might stand for a century or two, these ancient structures have weathered earthquakes, floods, and even the rise and fall of empires. What did these civilizations know that we've forgotten? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 27 astonishing blueprints, long buried, overlooked, or dismissed, that reveal the genius behind cities designed for eternity. Picture this, a metropolis with drainage systems so advanced they could handle storms modern cities would struggle with, or buildings crafted to sway with the earth rather than crumble during tremors. These weren't accidents, they were the result of meticulous planning, innovation, and a deep understanding of the natural world. From the labyrinthine aqueducts of Rome to the earthquake-defying temples of ancient Japan, these blueprints are more than just historical curiosities, they're masterclasses in resilience. And here's the thing, many of these techniques were so effective, they're still being studied by engineers today. This isn't just a journey into the past, it's a revelation for the future. What if the secrets to building sustainable, disaster-proof cities have been hiding in plain sight all along? As we uncover each of these 27 forgotten blueprints, you'll start to see the echoes of ancient ingenuity in the world around you, maybe even in your own city. So let's step into the footsteps of history's greatest engineers and unravel the mysteries they left behind, because the past isn't just a story, it's a blueprint for tomorrow. Ready to decode the secrets of eternity, let's begin. Hidden beneath the towering cliffs and rose-colored facades of Petra, an ancient marvel whispers its secrets, not in stone but in water. This desert city thrived not despite its arid environment, but because of it, thanks to a labyrinth of underground channels so advanced, they rival modern water systems. Picture workers painstakingly carving tunnels through solid rock, angling each slope to guide every precious drop of rainwater into reservoirs and cisterns. These weren't just gutters, they were a lifeline. The Nabateans didn't just survive the desert, they conquered it, turning scarcity into abundance. What's truly astonishing is how these channels balanced two opposing threats, drought and flash floods. When rare storms hit, the system didn't just collect water, it slowed it down. Curved channels and strategically placed barriers reduced erosion, while sedimentation tanks filtered out debris. Hydrologists studying Petra today have found that these designs are uncannily similar to modern flood control methods. It's as if the Nabateans understood fluid dynamics centuries before the science even existed. But here's the twist, this blueprint wasn't just about engineering, it was about foresight. The Nabateans built for a future they'd never see, knowing their city would need water long after they were gone. That's the real lesson etched into these tunnels. In an era where cities from Cape Town to Chennai grapple with water crises, Petra's ancient answer to sustainability feels eerily timely. Maybe resilience isn't about reinventing the wheel but remembering how it first turned. Now, let's travel from the deserts of Jordan to the floodplains of the Indus Valley, where another civilization turned the relentless force of water into an ally. Mohenjo-Daro didn't just rise from the banks of the Indus River, it danced with them. While most ancient cities feared floods, this 4,000-year-old marvel welcomed water as a partner, weaving an underground network of drains so precise it puts many modern systems to shame. Imagine walking down a street where every home had its own brick-lined bathroom, connected to a city-wide grid of covered sewers. These weren't crude ditches, They were masterpieces of gravity-fed engineering, each slope calculated to whisk waste away without a trace. And here's the kicker: maintenance crews could access the entire system through cleverly placed inspection holes, a feature so forward-thinking it wouldn't become standard again until the 19th century. What's even more remarkable is how this system tackled two invisible enemies, disease and inequality. Unlike later civilizations where sanitation was a luxury, Mohenjo-Daro's drains served every household from artisans to elites. Archaeologists have found evidence of standardized brick sizes and uniform pipe diameters, proof of centralized urban planning on a scale unmatched for millennia. When cholera or typhoid threatened, these channels didn't just remove waste, they severed the chain of infection at its source. But the real genius lies in what's missing. Unlike Roman aqueducts or Egyptian pyramids, Mohenjo-Daro's drainage system wasn't built to glorify rulers. It was a silent covenant between a city and its people, a promise of collective well-being etched into clay bricks. Today, as megacities from Mumbai to Lagos battle sewage crises, this ancient blueprint whispers a radical idea: that the mark of a great civilization isn't its monuments, but its gutters. Now, let's shift from the flow of water to the shudder of earth, because while Mohenjo-Daro mastered sanitation, another city cracked the code to surviving nature's fury. High in the Andes, where tectonic plates collide like angry titans, the Inca built a metropolis that didn't fear earthquakes. It embraced them. High on the sun-baked island of Crete, the Minoans didn't just build palaces, they built dance partners for the earth itself. The sprawling complex of Knossos, with its vibrant frescoes and labyrinthine corridors, hides a seismic secret in its very bones. Instead of rigid stone monoliths, the Minoans crafted their columns with a deliberate taper, wider at the top than the bottom, a design that seems upside down to modern eyes. But when the ground shook, these columns didn't snap. They swayed like reeds in the wind, redistributing the energy of earthquakes through flexible wooden frameworks. Archaeologists once assumed this was purely aesthetic until seismic simulations revealed the truth. These flipped columns could reduce structural stress by up to 40%, a revelation that's rewriting modern engineering textbooks. What's even more striking is how the Minoans paired this innovation with other subtle tricks. Walls were reinforced with timber beams acting as shock absorbers, while open courtyards provided space for buildings to shift without collision. It wasn't just about surviving quakes, it was about ensuring the palace remained functional afterward. Modern engineers in Japan and California are now studying these principles to design buildings that don't just withstand tremors but adapt to them. The Minoans' approach mirrors today's base isolation systems, where structures float on rubber pads, except their version used cypress wood and intuition. But here's the real lesson woven into Knossos' walls: resilience isn't about brute strength, it's about harmony. The Minoans didn't fight nature's chaos, they designed around it, turning vulnerability into an advantage. In an age where skyscrapers rely on steel and concrete, perhaps we've forgotten the wisdom of bending without breaking. As seismic zones grow more volatile, this ancient blueprint offers a provocative question. What if the future of disaster-proof design has been buried in the past for 3,500 years? Now, let's ascend from the earthquake zones of the Mediterranean to a city that seemed to laugh at gravity itself, perched among clouds, where stones fit so precisely, not even a blade of grass could slip between them. Machu Picchu doesn't just perch on the Andes, it floats. This ancient citadel clings to razor-thin ridges and vertigo-inducing slopes, defying logic with every stone. But the real magic lies beneath the surface. While modern cities fight against nature, the Inca worked with it, crafting terraces that didn't just flatten the land but transformed it into a living, breathing system. Each step of these agricultural shells was a masterpiece of reverse engineering. Topsoil carefully preserved, drainage channels hidden like veins beneath the surface, and retaining walls built with stones so precisely fitted, they've withstood 5 centuries of torrential rains and landslides. Geologists studying these terraces have found something astonishing. The soil here is actually richer today than when the Inca first built it. The secret. A hidden anatomy of gravel and sand. Beneath each terrace, layers of crushed rock acted like a sponge, absorbing monsoon rains before they could wash away the precious soil above. But it wasn't just about preventing erosion. These gravel beds regulated temperature, keeping roots warm during freezing mountain nights and cool under the scorching sun. Modern farmers battling climate change are now replicating this design, realizing the Incas' Stone Age methods outperform industrial irrigation. Yet the true stroke of genius lies in Machu Picchu's foundations. While skyscrapers today rely on steel pilings drilled deep into bedrock, the Inca used a simpler solution. They let the mountain move. Buildings here sit atop crushed stone layers up to 6 feet deep, a natural shock absorber that dissipates seismic energy like a wave breaking on shore. During earthquakes, the entire city would sway gently as one unit rather than cracking apart. Engineers in Japan's tsunami zones now use similar principles, proving ancient wisdom can outsmart billion-dollar technology. What's haunting is how these blueprints echo today's most urgent challenges. As cities from Sao Paulo to Jakarta battle landslides and sinking foundations, Machu Picchu stands as a silent mentor, teaching us that resilience isn't about conquering nature, but collaborating with it. The Inca didn't just build a city, they grew an ecosystem, one where every stone, every terrace, every hidden drain whispered the same lesson. Stability isn't rigid. It's alive. Now, let's journey from these mist-shrouded peaks to the blistering sands of Persia, where an empire cracked the code to beating heat without a single watt of electricity. Shibam's towering mud-brick skyscrapers rise from the Yemeni desert like a mirage. 8-story giants huddled so close together, their shadows knit a cooling canopy over the streets below. This 16th-century metropolis didn't just endure the blistering heat, it outsmarted it, crafting a natural air conditioning system so effective, modern architects are scrambling to replicate it. The secret: walls up to 3 feet thick, baked by the sun into thermal batteries. By day, these earthen barriers absorbed heat before it could penetrate homes. By night, they released it slowly through rooftop vents, creating a convection current that pulled cool air up from the shaded alleyways. The result: interior temperatures up to 15 degrees cooler than the surrounding desert without a single kilowatt of electricity. But the genius didn't stop at thick walls. Shibam's urban layout was a masterclass in microclimate control. Narrow, winding streets acted as wind tunnels, funneling breezes between buildings while minimizing sun exposure. Courtyards with reflective white plaster amplified light without trapping heat, and rooftop terraces doubled as evening chill zones where families slept under the stars. What's astonishing is how these techniques mirrored principles we now associate with high-tech green buildings: thermal mass, cross-ventilation, and solar geometry. Architects in Dubai's sustainable city have recently adapted Shibam's blueprint, using modern materials to recreate its passive cooling effects, proof that ancient solutions can meet contemporary challenges. Yet there's a deeper lesson etched into these sun-baked towers. Shibam's builders didn't just adapt to their environment, they listened to it. Every material, every angle, every alley was a dialogue with the desert. In an era where air conditioning accounts for nearly 10% of global electricity use, This ancient city whispers a radical alternative. That comfort isn't about overpowering nature, but collaborating with it. As heat waves turn cities into furnaces, Shibam's legacy raises an urgent question: have we been cooling our buildings all wrong? Now, let's journey from the desert's embrace to the heart of an empire where cleanliness wasn't just a luxury, but a civic religion. The Romans didn't just build baths, they engineered a hydrological revolution that kept millions healthy. Rome didn't just conquer the world, it cleaned it. Beneath the marble streets and bustling forums, an engineering marvel snaked through the earth like a silent guardian, the Cloaca Maxima. What began as a simple ditch to drain the malaria-ridden marshes around Rome blossomed into a subterranean cathedral of sanitation, its vaulted brick arches wide enough to drive a cart through. Imagine the audacity of 6th century BCE engineers diverting an entire river, the Tiber's tributary, to flush waste through this gargantuan tunnel system, all while keeping the city above fragrant and functional. This wasn't just plumbing, it was a public health revolution that allowed Rome to swell beyond 1 million residents when most cities choked at 50,000. The genius lay in the details. Roman engineers designed the Cloaca with a gentle downward slope just 1 foot per 100 feet, ensuring gravity did the work without sluggish buildup. They lined its walls with waterproof mortar so durable, sections still drain rainwater today, 27 centuries later. But the real masterstroke was integration. Public latrines connected directly to the system, their marble seats perched over flowing water that whisked waste downstream, while overflow channels prevented flooding during storms. Modern epidemiologists credit Rome's sanitation dominance for its lack of major plagues until the 3rd century CE, record unmatched until the invention of modern sewage treatment. What's startling is how contemporary this ancient system feels. When London built its sewer network in the 1860s, engineers modeled it on the Cloaca's principles. Tokyo's stormwater tunnels use similar overflow chambers to prevent urban flooding. Yet Rome's sewer held something our modern systems often lack: beauty. The entrance to the Cloaca Maxima was framed as a triumphal arch, its mouth spilling into the Tiber like a fountain. The Romans didn't hide their sewers, they celebrated them as civic triumphs. Now, let's step from these grand tunnels into the intimate spaces of daily life, because while Rome engineered public health on a massive scale, another civilization baked safety into every home's very walls. On the island of Crete, the Minoans didn't just build houses, they built life-saving fortresses disguised as ordinary rooms. Satal Heriuk's rooftops weren't just shelters, they were streets in the sky. 9,000 years ago, in one of the world's first cities, families climbed down ladders into their homes instead of stepping through doors. This wasn't some quirky architectural choice, it was a survival strategy etched into mudbrick and bone. With no streets at ground level, the entire city became a continuous honeycomb of shared walls and interlocking roofs, forming a fortress against prowling wolves and flash floods that could drown a valley in minutes. But the real marvel wasn't just defense, it was community. Those flat rooftops doubled as Neolithic sidewalks where neighbors gathered to grind grain, mend tools, and share stories under the stars. Archaeologists have found no evidence of palaces or temples here, just hundreds of nearly identical homes, suggesting a society where status didn't dictate space. What's revolutionary about this design isn't just its age, but its insight. Modern suburbs sprawl with isolated yards and gated driveways, but Satal Heriuk thrived on proximity. Its rooftop network forced interaction, turning chores into social events and crises into collective responsibilities. When a ladder broke or a roof leaked, everyone pitched in, because in a city without alleys, your neighbor's problem was your own security risk. Anthropologists studying the site have noticed something peculiar. The bones found here show fewer signs of violence than most ancient settlements. Without ground-level entrances to defend, without private courtyards to hoard, Satal Heriuk's architecture may have fostered something rare, a society where trust was built into the blueprint. Today, as urban planners wrestle with loneliness epidemics and gated communities, this Neolithic city whispers an alternative. Imagine apartment complexes where rooftop gardens replace private balconies, or fire escapes redesigned as communal terraces. The genius of Satal Heriuk wasn't just keeping danger out, it was pulling people together. In an era of smart cities and biometric security, maybe the oldest urban design still holds the freshest ideas. Now, let's trade these sun-baked rooftops for a city where the very air was engineered. In the heart of Persia, ancient architects didn't just build with brick. They sculpted the wind itself, crafting towers that turned desert breezes into natural refrigerators. Persepolis didn't just scrape the sky, it tamed the wind. Rising from the scorching plains of ancient Persia, these towering structures weren't monuments or watchtowers, but ingenious climate controllers known as wind catchers. Picture slender towers soaring above rooftops, their slanted openings strategically angled to snatch even the faintest desert breeze. But the magic happened inside. As air rushed down these vertical channels, it passed over subterranean water channels or cool clay walls, dropping temperatures by up to 20 degrees before whispering through palace halls and grain storehouses. This wasn't just shade, it was early thermodynamics in action, a system so effective that dates and grains stored in these buildings resisted spoilage for years. The sophistication lay in their adaptability. Persian architects tailored each wind catcher's height and orientation to local wind patterns. Some featured multiple openings to catch breezes from any direction, while others used internal baffles to adjust airflow like ancient dampers. Modern engineers have discovered these designs align uncannily with computational fluid dynamics models, proving the Persians understood principles we'd only formalize in the 20th century. Today, from Dubai's sustainable skyscrapers to Arizona's earthships, architects are resurrecting these ancient towers, pairing them with solar panels to create zero-energy cooling systems. Yet the real revelation is how holistically Persepolis integrated these structures. Wind catchers weren't standalone gadgets, but nodes in a citywide network cooling communal spaces, preserving medical supplies, even regulating humidity in textile workshops. In an era where air conditioning gobbles 10% of global electricity, these passive systems whisper a radical alternative. That comfort doesn't require combustion, just clever geometry. As heatwaves push power grids to collapse, Persepolis' silent sentinels stand as timeless mentors, proving sometimes the best way forward is to reach back. Now, let's shift from these breezy towers to a city where order wasn't just a preference, but a mathematical obsession. While Persepolis sculpted the wind, another civilization etched precision into every street corner, proving urban planning could be both an art and a science. Teotihuacan's grid wasn't just orderly, it was celestial choreography etched in stone. Stretching across the valley like a vast sundial, every avenue and pyramid in this Mesoamerican metropolis aligned with cosmic precision. The Street of the Dead, running 16 degrees east of true north, wasn't a planning error. It was a deliberate arrow pointing to the setting sun on August 13th, the day the Maya calendar marked as the birth of the current era. Modern laser scans reveal even the pyramid of the sun's west face angles perfectly to catch the first rays of the equinox, illuminating its staircase in a blade of golden light that descends like a serpent. But this wasn't just celestial theater, it was urban engineering at its most profound. What's astonishing is how the city's layout served dual purposes. The same grid that guided priests during sacred processions also optimized water flow during rainy seasons, with carefully graded streets channeling runoff into agricultural terraces. Archaeologists have discovered underground drainage systems mirroring the alignment of temples above, proving the sacred and practical were inseparable. Even the apartment compound's uniform blocks housing over 100,000 residents were arranged to create wind tunnels that cooled the city naturally. Urban planners today marvel at how Teotihuacan achieved what modern cities struggle with: density without chaos. But the real genius lies in the unseen calculations. Without compasses or steel tools, Teotihuacan's builders calibrated their city using nothing but ropes, wooden stakes, and celestial observations. Anthropologists recently recreated their methods, stretching cords between mountain peaks to establish sightlines accurate within fractions of a degree. When NASA scientists overlaid satellite images with astronomical charts, they found the entire city forms a scale model of the solar system, with pyramids marking planetary orbits. This wasn't just city planning, it was cosmology made tangible. Now, let's journey from this celestial grid to a civilization that turned warfare into an art of engineering where walls weren't just barriers, but tactical puzzles designed to outthink any invader. The Mycenaeans didn't just build fortresses, they constructed psychological mazes in stone. The stones of Sacsayhuamán don't just sit together, they embrace. Towering above Cusco like the teeth of some ancient giant, these megalithic walls defy logic with their precision. Each boulder, some weighing over 100 tons, was carved with such exactness that the joints between them disappear into seamless curves, locking together like pieces of an eternal puzzle. The Inca called this technique ashlar masonry, but it was more than artistry, it was survival. In a land where earthquakes shatter modern concrete, these walls have stood unshaken for 6 centuries, swaying with tremors instead of resisting them. The secret: those zigzagging joints aren't just tight, they're kinetic. When the ground shakes, the stones shift minutely, then settle back into place like a self-healing jigsaw. Modern engineers using laser scans have discovered something astonishing. The contact surfaces between stones are slightly convex, creating friction that dampens seismic energy. It's a principle now used in base-isolated skyscrapers, where buildings float on ball bearings during quakes, except the Inca achieved it with nothing but bronze tools and patience. Even more remarkable is how they transported these colossal stones. Without wheels or draft animals, workers likely used log rollers and earthen ramps, but some legends speak of stones walking to their destinations, perhaps rolled on carefully engineered cobbled tracks still hidden beneath the soil. Yet the true genius of Sacsayhuamán lies in its humility. Unlike the pyramids or Roman temples, these walls weren't built to glorify rulers, they were designed to outlast them. The Inca understood that true power wasn't in dominating nature, but in listening to it. As climate change accelerates erosion and seismic zones expand, this ancient blueprint offers a quiet revolution. That resilience isn't about brute force, but about bending without breaking. Now let's journey from these earthquake-defying walls to a city that rejected roads altogether, where the streets weren't below your feet but above your head. In the marshlands of Mesopotamia, the ancient Babylonians built a metropolis that floated. Venice didn't just adapt to water, it became water. While modern cities fight to keep their streets dry, this floating masterpiece embraced the tides as its lifeblood. Picture teams of medieval engineers driving thousands of wooden pilings, each one charred to resist rot, deep into the soft lagoon silt, creating an artificial forest beneath the waves. These submerged timbers didn't just support buildings, they petrified over centuries, turning into stone-like anchors that still hold up palaces today. But the real stroke of genius was the canal network itself, not just as waterways, but as the city's circulatory system. Every narrow alley dead ends at a canal, forcing goods and people onto boats, while the Grand Canal's serpentine curve slows tidal surges that might otherwise flood the streets. What's astonishing is how Venice's design solved problems we're still grappling with. Without cars, the city achieved near-zero emissions transportation centuries before climate change. Its compact layout, where every essential service lies within walking distance, now serves as a model for 15-minute cities. Even the famous Venetian wellheads, dotting communal courtyards, reveal ingenuity. They filter rainwater through layers of sand, creating decentralized freshwater sources in a saltwater environment. Hydrologists studying Venice have found its canal system naturally flushes out pollutants twice daily with the tides, a passive cleaning mechanism modern cities spend millions to replicate. Yet the most revolutionary lesson lies in Venice's relationship with instability. While other civilizations sought solid ground, the Venetians built on uncertainty, crafting a city that floats atop its own contradictions. Today, as rising seas threaten coastal megacities from Miami to Mumbai, this ancient aquatic blueprint offers a radical alternative. Instead of fighting the water, why not let it lift us up? Now let's step from these liquid streets into a city where sunlight didn't just shine, it was sculpted. High in the Andes, the Inca didn't just build with stone, they engineered light itself, turning entire mountains into mirrors that defied the darkness. The temples of Heliopolis didn't just bask in sunlight, they commanded it. Deep within these sacred halls, where flickering torches would have tainted the air with smoke, ancient priests engineered a revolutionary solution: sunlight itself, captured and redirected through polished bronze mirrors so precisely angled they could illuminate even the darkest inner sanctums. Imagine standing in a chamber buried beneath layers of stone, yet bathed in a golden glow as if the walls themselves radiated light. This wasn't magic, it was optics mastered 3,000 years before the invention of electric bulbs. Archaeologists studying temple remnants have found traces of reflective alloys with compositions nearly identical to modern mirrors, suggesting the Egyptians understood metallurgy well enough to minimize distortion. But the brilliance of this system lay in its adaptability. These mirrors weren't static, they were adjusted seasonally to account for the sun's shifting path. During winter solstice, when light was scarcest, priests likely repositioned them to catch the sun's low angle, funneling every possible ray into the temple's heart. Modern solar engineers have reverse-engineered these techniques, noting how the Egyptians' use of curved reflectors predates today's parabolic solar concentrators by millennia. In fact, the same principle now powers solar farms across the Mojave Desert, where mirrors focus sunlight onto towers to generate electricity, proof that ancient innovation can still fuel the future. What's often overlooked, though, is how this lighting system transformed architecture itself. Without the need for ventilation to disperse torch smoke, Heliopolis designers could create deeper, more intricate spaces, rooms within rooms, all glowing with borrowed sunlight. This freedom influenced everything from Greek temples to Roman basilicas, where clerestory windows and light wells echo the same goal: conquering darkness without fire. As cities today strive to reduce energy consumption, Heliopolis whispers a timeless truth. Sometimes the most advanced technology isn't something new, but something rediscovered. Now let's shift from these radiant temples to a city where defense wasn't just about walls, it was about deception. The Mycenaeans didn't just build fortresses, they constructed labyrinths of stone designed to outthink invaders at every turn. Constantinople's Theodosian walls didn't just stand guard, they performed a symphony of defense. Imagine 3 layers of fortifications, each playing a distinct role: a 20-meter-wide moat to drown siege towers, an outer wall to blunt the first assault, and an inner wall towering 12 meters high, studded with 96 towers that turned every vantage point into a killing field. But the real genius lay in the materials themselves. Unlike single-substance walls that crumbled under bombardment, these barriers alternated between thick bands of limestone and courses of red brick, a design that acted like a shock absorber, dispersing the energy of catapult strikes across the entire structure. Modern engineers analyzing the walls have found something remarkable. The brick layers acted like seismic dampers, preventing cracks from propagating through the stone. It was earthquake engineering applied to warfare. What's even more impressive is how these walls adapted to evolving threats. When gunpowder arrived in the 15th century, the Theodosian walls faced their greatest test and nearly passed. Ottoman cannons that could reduce other fortresses to rubble in days took weeks to breach small sections, buying the city precious time. Military historians now recognize this as one of history's most prolonged defensive performances, outlasting empires and technologies. Security experts studying the walls today see parallels in modern resilient infrastructure, from layered cybersecurity systems to blast-resistant buildings. The alternating materials principle has even inspired composite armor in military vehicles, proving ancient solutions can still deflect contemporary threats. Yet the walls' true legacy isn't just in their strength, it's in their psychological impact. For nearly a millennium, their sheer presence deterred invasions before they began, shaping the fate of empires through reputation alone. In an age where security often means invisible firewalls and encrypted data, these towering stone sentinels whisper a timeless lesson. Sometimes, the most effective defense is one that dares attackers to even try. Now, let's journey from these indomitable walls to a city where every brick wasn't just a barrier but a storyteller. In the labyrinthine streets of Harappa, the past wasn't written on scrolls but baked into the very fabric of urban life. Babylon didn't just build walls, it wrote history into them. Imagine walking through the bustling streets of this ancient metropolis, where every glazed brick shimmered not just with vibrant blues and golds, but with the very words of kings. The Babylonians didn't merely construct buildings, they baked their legacy into the city's bones, pressing cuneiform inscriptions into wet clay before firing. These weren't hidden messages or secret codes, they were bold declarations of law, pride, and memory, etched into the fabric of daily life. A single brick might bear the name of Nebuchadnezzar Roman II, while another recounted the construction of the Ishtar Gate, turning every wall into a living archive. What's revolutionary about this system wasn't just its durability, though firing clay ensured these records survived wars and weather, but its accessibility. Unlike scrolls locked in temples or steles erected in plazas, Babylon's brick archives were everywhere, in market stalls, private homes, even sewer linings. Citizens couldn't escape their history. It surrounded them, literally underfoot. Modern archivists have marveled at how this decentralized system preserved knowledge far better than centralized libraries vulnerable to fire or pillage. Today's memorial architecture, like the Stolperstein Holocaust memorials embedded in European streets, echoes this same philosophy, that memory thrives when woven into the spaces we inhabit. Yet the true brilliance lies in the brick's dual purpose. These weren't just passive records, they were structural elements bearing weight, defying erosion, and outlasting parchment by millennia. Chemists analyzing the glaze have found it acted as a protective shield, repelling water and salt corrosion, an accidental preservation technique modern conservators now replicate for digital storage mediums. The lesson: Babylon understood that resilience isn't just about preserving the past, it's about making it inseparable from the future. Now, let's step from this chorus of baked words into a city where sound itself was engineered. Far from Babylon's bustling streets, the ancient Greeks crafted an urban oasis where silence wasn't an absence, but an architectural achievement. Derinkuyu's architects didn't just dig into the earth, they sculpted silence itself. Hidden beneath Cappadocia's moon-like landscape, this labyrinthine city descends 18 levels into the soft volcanic rock, a subterranean maze where sound simply vanishes. The secret lies in the very fabric of its construction, porous tough stone absorbing vibrations like a sponge, while narrow, corkscrewing tunnels act as natural baffles, scattering sound waves until they dissipate into nothingness. Modern acousticians measuring these passages have found noise reduction comparable to state-of-the-art recording studios, except Derinkuyu achieved it 2,000 years ago without a single sheet of foam or fiberglass. But the brilliance wasn't just in muting noise, it was in controlling it. Certain chambers feature precisely angled walls that amplify whispers along specific paths, allowing warnings to travel covertly between levels while remaining inaudible to outsiders. Archaeologists suspect this was no accident. The city's designers understood acoustics well enough to create sound alleys for communication and dead zones for secrecy. Today, engineers studying Derinkuyu's principles are applying them to concert halls and hospitals, proving ancient techniques can solve modern noise pollution. What's most striking, though, is how this underground sanctuary redefined safety. While surface cities relied on walls and watchtowers, Derinkuyu's defense was invisibility, not just from sight but from sound. Invaders could march overhead without hearing the bustling kitchens, workshops, and chapels humming beneath their feet. In an era where urban noise is linked to skyrocketing stress levels, this ancient blueprint offers a radical alternative. That true refuge isn't just about physical barriers but sonic ones. Now, let's ascend from this realm of engineered silence to a city where the heavens themselves dictated every street and stone. While Derinkuyu turned inward, another civilization looked skyward, aligning their metropolis with the cosmos so precisely, it became a mirror of the stars. Angkor Wat didn't just reach for the heavens, it mapped them. Every tower, every corridor, every step of this sprawling temple complex was a celestial blueprint, meticulously aligned to mirror the movements of stars and planets. Modern archaeoastronomers have discovered something astonishing. During the spring equinox, the sun rises directly over Angkor Wat's central tower, casting a shadow that perfectly bisects the temple's western entrance. This wasn't coincidence, it was celestial choreography. The Khmer architects didn't just build a temple, they built a stone and sandstone planetarium, where the entire complex functioned as a giant astronomical calendar. Even the moat surrounding Angkor Wat played a role, its still waters reflecting the night sky so precisely that worshippers could literally walk among the stars. The precision goes deeper than grand alignments. Smaller shrines within the complex mark solstices and lunar standstills, while causeways point to specific constellations worshipped in Khmer cosmology. Researchers using laser scanning technology have found that these alignments were so exact they accounted for atmospheric refraction, the bending of light as it passes through Earth's atmosphere. This level of accuracy wouldn't be matched in Western astronomy until the invention of precision telescopes centuries later. What's breathtaking is how the Khmer's merged spirituality with engineering. The temple's 5 central towers don't just represent Mount Meru, the mythical home of Hindu gods. They also map the 5 visible planets of antiquity, with their positions adjusted to match the sky on significant festival dates. But the real magic lies in how Angkor Wat's celestial design served its people. Farmers didn't need handheld calendars. The temple itself told them when to plant and harvest. Priests could predict eclipses by watching how moonlight fell across specific carvings. This wasn't just architecture, it was a dialogue between earth and sky, where every stone whispered the rhythms of the cosmos. As modern cities disconnect from natural cycles, Angkor Wat stands as a silent challenge. What if our buildings didn't just shelter us, but connected us to the universe? Now, let's descend from these star-aligned towers to a city where the ground itself was engineered for life, not just on one level, but many. While Angkor Wat reached for the heavens, another civilization dug deep, creating a layered metropolis where every stratum told a different story. Mesa Verde's cliff dwellings didn't just cling to the rock, they danced with it. Imagine an entire community suspended between earth and sky, where homes weren't just built against the cliffs but woven into them. The ancestral pueblones didn't carve their dwellings into the sandstone. They let the canyon's natural alcoves embrace them, turning overhangs into insulation and sheer drops into fortifications. These weren't just shelters, they were masterclasses in passive climate control. South-facing entrances captured low winter sunlight to warm interiors, while deep recesses blocked the scorching summer rays, maintaining temperatures so stable. Modern architects are now replicating the principle in energy-efficient skyscrapers. But the real innovation lay in how Mesa Verde turned verticality into community. Ladders and handholds connected multi-story apartments, creating a social fabric where neighbors lived literally above and below one another. A design that fostered cooperation in a landscape where isolation meant peril. Archaeologists have found evidence of shared storage rooms and communal plazas tucked into the cliffs, proving these weren't just individual hideaways but interconnected neighborhoods. Today's urban planners see echoes of Mesa Verde in Hong Kong's high-density towers or Singapore's vertical gardens, where limited space pushes cities upward instead of outward. Yet the most striking lesson lies in what Mesa Verde left behind. When drought came, the pueblones didn't fight the land, they listened. Their departure wasn't failure, it was adaptability, a reminder that resilience isn't just about enduring but knowing when to evolve. As rising sea levels threaten coastal cities, this ancient blueprint whispers a provocative question. What if the future of urban living isn't about conquering geography, but harmonizing with it? Now, let's journey from these sun-baked cliffs to a city where garbage wasn't a problem, it was currency. In the heart of medieval Japan, Edo's waste became the lifeblood of an urban revolution, proving sustainability isn't a modern invention but a rediscovered art. Athens didn't just create democracy, it perfected the art of making something from nothing. In the shadow of the Parthenon, where philosophers debated the nature of existence, ordinary Athenians were quietly mastering a different kind of wisdom, the alchemy of reuse. Broken pottery, the ancient equivalent of plastic waste, didn't end up in landfills, it became the backbone of the city itself. Shards of smashed amphorae, known as ostroka, were crushed and mixed into mortar, reinforcing walls and roads with the toughness of ceramic. Archaeologists have unearthed entire foundations layered with these fragments, proving what modern sustainability experts now champion. That waste is just a resource in the wrong place. But the ingenuity didn't stop at construction sites. Olive oil containers, the lifeblood of Athenian trade, lived multiple lives. After their initial use, these sturdy clay vessels were scrubbed, sealed with resin, and repurposed to store grain, wine, or even documents. Shipbuilders lined hulls with them for buoyancy, while gardeners turned them into planters, a practice still seen in Mediterranean villages today. What's revolutionary isn't just the recycling, but the mindset behind it. Athenians didn't see empty containers as trash, they saw potential. Modern circular economy advocates point to this as one of history's earliest examples of closed-loop systems, where every object had a next chapter. The lesson here isn't just about sustainability, it's about scalability. Athens, with a population nearing 300,000 at its peak, managed waste without landfills or incinerators, simply by designing reuse into daily life. Contemporary cities from Amsterdam to Tokyo are now experimenting with similar principles, from zero-waste neighborhoods to modular construction materials. But Athens' blueprint offers something deeper, proof that a culture's values can be measured not by what it throws away, but by what it refuses to discard. Now, let's shift from this world of repurposed pottery to a city where security wasn't an afterthought, it was the foundation. In the rugged highlands of Scotland, the Brock dwellers didn't just build homes, they engineered fortresses disguised as ordinary houses, blending defense and domesticity in a way that still baffles modern architects. The streets of Mohenjo-Daro didn't just rise from the earth, they clicked together like pieces of a perfectly measured puzzle. Every brick in this 4,000-year-old city adhered to a ratio so precise, it might as well have rolled off an assembly line, 1 part width to 2 parts length to 4 parts thickness. This wasn't just convenience, it was a revolution in urban planning. Imagine builders across the Indus Valley reaching for identical bricks, knowing every piece would fit seamlessly, whether constructing a humble home or a monumental granary. The result, a metropolis where construction moved at unprecedented speed, and quality control wasn't an afterthought, it was baked into the very fabric of the city. What's astonishing is how this standardization extended beyond dimensions. Archaeologists have found that Harappan bricks shared consistent firing temperatures, ensuring uniform strength, while clay mixtures were optimized for local weather, hard enough to withstand monsoon rains yet porous enough to breathe in the heat. Modern engineers have tested these ancient bricks and found their compressive strength rivals contemporary materials, but the real stroke of genius lay in the system's simplicity. By using modular sizes, the Harappans could calculate material needs at a glance, reducing waste and streamlining logistics centuries before the Industrial Revolution. Yet the legacy of these bricks isn't just in their durability, it's in their democracy. Unlike the monumental stones of Egypt or Mesopotamia, reserved for elites, standardized bricks empowered ordinary citizens to build with confidence. A farmer could repair his home with the same materials used in public baths, creating a visual harmony that unified the city. Today, as construction industries grapple with supply chain chaos and inconsistent materials, Mohenjo-Daro whispers a radical idea. That progress isn't always about inventing something new sometimes, it's about perfecting the basics. Now, let's drift from these precisely measured streets to a city where stability wasn't found in the ground, but in the embrace of water itself. Where Mohenjo-Daro stood firm, another civilization chose to float, transforming uncertainty into their greatest strength. Tenochtitlan didn't just rise from a lake, it fed an empire from one. In the heart of the Valley of Mexico, where swampy waters seemed unfit for farming, the Aztecs engineered a miracle, floating gardens called chinampas. Picture workers weaving sturdy reed frames, anchoring them to the lakebed with willow roots, then piling layers of nutrient-rich mud dredged from the canals. These weren't just rafts of soil, they were self-fertilizing ecosystems. As the organic matter decomposed, it released nutrients directly into the crops, corn, beans, squash, while the surrounding canals acted as natural irrigation lines, keeping roots perpetually hydrated. The result, harvests so abundant, historians estimate a single chinampa could feed 20 people year-round, transforming a marshy backwater into the breadbasket of 200,000. What's revolutionary about chinampas isn't just their productivity, but their sustainability. Unlike modern monoculture farms that deplete soil, these islands grew richer with each season. Aquatic plants like duckweed filtered water naturally, while fish thriving in the canals provided protein and pest control. Agroecologists studying chinampers today have found their yields outstrip conventional farming by up to 400% with zero synthetic inputs. Cities from Xochimilco to Seattle now revive this ancient technique to combat food deserts, proving that resilience isn't about high-tech solutions, but about working with nature's rhythms. Yet the true genius lies in the chinampers' duality. They weren't just farms, they were flood control. During rainy seasons, the porous reed mats absorbed excess water, acting like sponges to prevent urban flooding, a function modern cities now spend billions replicating with concrete infrastructure. The Aztecs didn't just adapt to their environment, they engineered it into a partner, creating a circular economy where waste became fertility and water became both crop and protector. As climate change threatens global food systems, this ancient blueprint whispers a radical alternative. That abundance isn't about conquering land, but collaborating with water. Now, let's descend from these floating gardens to a city that turned darkness into its greatest asset. While Tenochtitlan flourished on the surface, another civilization carved its future beneath the earth, proving that survival isn't about fighting the elements, but reimagining them. Deep beneath the sun-scorched deserts of Persia, an ancient water network pulsed like hidden veins, the Canals, a labyrinth of underground channels so brilliantly simple, they turned wastelands into oases. Picture teams of workers digging vertical shafts at precise intervals, then connecting them with gently sloping tunnels that guided groundwater across vast distances without a single drop lost to evaporation. These weren't just ditches in the dark, they were feats of hydro-engineering that could transport water for dozens of miles, relying solely on gravity and the Earth's own cooling embrace. Modern hydrologists studying canals have found their efficiency rivals contemporary irrigation systems, with some tunnels still functioning after 2,000 years of continuous use. The true mastery lay in their adaptability. Each canal was tailored to its terrain, tunnel angles adjusted to the water table's depth, airflow shafts positioned to prevent stagnation, and outlet pools designed to distribute water equitably among farms. In the city of Gonabad, one canal system stretched over 25 miles, its water so cool and pure, it served as both irrigation and natural refrigeration for food storage. What's astonishing is how these systems fostered cooperation. Maintaining a canal required entire communities to share labor and water rights, creating a social contract as enduring as the tunnels themselves. Today, UNESCO-protected canals in Iran still water crops, proving sustainability isn't about technology, but timeless principles. Now, let's shift from these hidden waterways to a city where geometry wasn't just a tool, it was a language. While Persia's canals flowed unseen, another civilization etched precision into every street corner, turning mathematics into mortar. The Parthenon's columns don't just hold up a roof, they whisper the secrets of beauty itself. Every curve, every angle of this ancient temple was crafted with a precision that still makes mathematicians pause. The Greeks didn't just build, they composed, using the golden ratio approximately 1.618 to shape everything from the spacing of columns to the height of the pediments. Stand before it, and something feels inexplicably right, as if the structure resonates with some deep, universal harmony. Modern laser scans reveal deviations of less than a millimeter in some sections, proving this wasn't approximation but obsession. Yet here's the mystery: did the architects consciously calculate these proportions, or were they guided by an instinctive sense of balance? Scholars have pored over ancient texts for answers, finding hints but no smoking gun. Some argue the ratio appears too consistently to be accidental. while others point out that Greek builders often relied on compass and ruler techniques that naturally produced golden ratios without formal understanding. The genius of the Parthenon lies in its defiance of rigid grids. Those iconic columns, they're not perfectly straight. Each one swells slightly at the center, a technique called intosses, counteracting the optical illusion that makes straight lines appear concave from a distance. The floor curves upward at the edges, preventing it from seeming to sag under the weight of the marble. Even the spacing between columns varies imperceptibly, tighter at the corners to create a sense of stability. These weren't just construction tricks, they were psychological masterstrokes, proof that the Greeks understood how humans perceive space long before neuroscience existed. Architects today still study these refinements, applying them to skyscrapers and bridges where visual weight matters as much as physical load. But the Parthenon's true legacy isn't just in its proportions, it's in its purpose. This wasn't merely a temple to Athena, it was a manifesto in stone declaring that beauty and function weren't opposites but partners. As cities today grapple with soulless glass towers, this ancient blueprint challenges us. What if our buildings didn't just shelter bodies but uplift spirits? Now, let's step from this temple of perfect angles into a city where nature itself became an architect. While the Greeks sculpted light and stone, another civilization wove gardens into their streets, turning entire neighborhoods into living, breathing climate systems. Babylon's Hanging Gardens may be the most debated wonder of the ancient world, a botanical masterpiece some historians swear existed, while others dismiss as pure legend. But whether myth or reality, the descriptions left behind paint a vision so vivid, they've shaped urban design for millennia. Picture tiered terraces, lush with towering trees and cascading vines, seemingly floating above the desert like a mirage. Ancient texts describe a hydraulic marvel, possibly an early version of the Archimedes screw lifting water from the Euphrates to nourish every level, turning baked clay into fertile soil. The gardens weren't just beautiful, they were a defiance of nature, proving even the harshest landscapes could be coaxed into abundance. What's fascinating isn't just the engineering, but the psychology behind it. According to legend, King Nebuchadnezzar built the gardens to soothe his homesick wife, longing for the green mountains of her homeland. If true, this would make the Hanging Gardens one of history's first therapeutic landscapes, a concept modern hospitals and urban planners now embrace with rooftop gardens and healing green spaces. Hydrologists studying the descriptions suggest the irrigation system might have used a chain pump, a technology later perfected by the Greeks, to circulate water without manual labor. Today, architects in Singapore and Milan echo this blueprint with sky farms and vertical forests, stacking greenery high into the air to combat food deserts and urban heat islands. Yet the gardens' true legacy lies in their ambition. They represent humanity's refusal to accept limitations, whether geographic, climatic, or even gravitational. As climate change pushes cities to rethink food systems, Babylon's vanished wonder offers a provocative question. What if the future of farming isn't outward but upward? Now let's journey from these soaring gardens to a city where the earth itself was transformed. While Babylon defied the desert, another civilization performed an even greater alchemy, turning shifting sand into eternal stone. Roman concrete didn't just build empires, it defied the sea itself. While modern concrete crumbles in saltwater within decades, the harbors of ancient Rome still stand strong after 2,000 years, submerged in the Mediterranean's corrosive embrace. The secret, a recipe lost to history until recently when scientists cracked its code. Instead of ordinary sand, Roman engineers mixed lime with volcanic ash from Mount Vesuvius, creating a mineral called aluminum tobamorite. This wasn't just glue for stones, it was a living material. As seawater seeped into the concrete, it triggered a chemical reaction, forming new crystals that actually reinforced the structure over time. Modern labs have replicated this process, watching in awe as hairline fractures in Roman-style concrete healed themselves within weeks. What's revolutionary isn't just the durability, but the sustainability. Traditional concrete production spews massive amounts of carbon dioxide, but the Roman formula required lower firing temperatures and used abundant volcanic materials. Engineers today are adapting this ancient recipe for tidal barriers and offshore wind farms, where longevity is critical. The irony: some of the best volcanic ash for replication comes from the same Italian quarries the Romans used, as if the land itself preserved the knowledge. Yet the true genius lies in the Romans' humility. They didn't invent this material, they observed it. Natural cement formations near volcanoes likely inspired their experiments, proving innovation often starts with paying attention. As rising seas threaten coastal cities, this ancient blueprint offers more than stronger concrete. It teaches us to see solutions where others see only ruins. Now let's journey from these indestructible harbors to a city that didn't just build for its time, but for centuries beyond. While Rome mastered materials, another civilization engineered something even rarer: a metropolis designed to grow gracefully, its streets stretching like open arms to welcome the future. Alexandria didn't just rise from the Mediterranean shore, it left room to breathe. When Alexander the Great commissioned Dinocrates to design his namesake city, the architect envisioned more than grand temples and bustling ports. He laid out a grid so expansive, entire neighborhoods could sprout like new branches on a growing tree. Streets stretched beyond the initial settlement, their neat lines fading into empty lots marked not for monuments but for possibilities. This wasn't just city planning, it was urban foresight carved into the earth. Modern archaeologists have uncovered boundary stones placed precisely where future gates would stand, proving Alexandria's blueprint wasn't a snapshot of its time, but an open invitation to the future. What's revolutionary about this design isn't just its scale, but its humility. Dinocrates resisted the temptation to fill every inch with immediate glory, leaving swaths of land fallow for generations yet unborn. When the city's population exploded centuries later, THOSE Chinese letter spaces absorbed new markets, theaters, and homes without the chaotic sprawl that plagued other ancient metropoles. Urban planners today call this elastic urbanism, a concept now guiding cities from Amsterdam to Singapore, where flexible zoning allows communities to evolve organically. The genius lies in the grid's simplicity. Straight, wide avenues intersecting at right angles could extend infinitely without losing coherence, a lesson modern cities often ignore in favor of winding, landlocked layouts. Yet Alexandria's true innovation was psychological. By designing for growth, Dinocrates sent a message to every citizen: this city isn't just for you, it's for your grandchildren. That long-term thinking echoes in contemporary projects like Barcelona's superblocks, where streets are Chinese letter for pedestrian zones yet to come, or Tokyo's underground utility tunnels built with excess capacity for technologies not yet invented. As climate migration and population shifts test urban limits, Alexandria's ancient grid whispers a radical notion: that the mark of a great city isn't how well it serves the present, but how gracefully it embraces the unknown. Now let's shift from this vision of expansive land to a city that turned the sea itself into an engine. While a Lexandri, a Chinese letter space on shore, another civilization tapped into the restless energy of the tides, proving that the ocean could be more than a boundary, it could be a power source. The ancient docks of Eridu didn't just welcome ships, they harnessed the sea's pulse. Beneath this Mesopotamian port city, engineers carved ingenious chambers called moon pools, where incoming tides rushed through narrow channels with enough force to turn massive stone grindstones. Picture the rhythmic dance of seawater filling these reservoirs at high tide, then being funneled through precisely angled sluices to power entire flour mills without a single human hand pushing the wheel. This wasn't just early automation, it was humanity's first flirtation with renewable energy, centuries before the concept even had a name. Modern hydrodynamic simulations reveal these tidal traps could generate consistent power for up to 6 hours per cycle, their efficiency rivaling small-scale hydroelectric systems today. What makes these moon pools revolutionary isn't just their mechanics, but their philosophy. Unlike later civilizations that sought to dominate nature with dams and levees, Eridu's engineers worked with the sea's natural rhythms. Their system required no fossil fuels, no deforestation, just an intimate understanding of lunar cycles and coastal geography. Archaeologists studying the site have found evidence that mill operators adjusted grinding schedules based on tide charts etched into clay tablets, proving this was no accidental discovery but a planned technological ecosystem. Contemporary engineers in places like Scotland's Orkney Islands now revive similar principles with modern tidal turbines, acknowledging that sometimes progress means rediscovering what ancient minds already knew. Yet the real stroke of genius lay in the moon pool's dual purpose. By trapping seawater during high tide, they created freshwater reserves through natural filtration. Sand layers beneath the pools removed salt as water percolated downward, providing drinking supplies during droughts. This integration of food production and water security speaks to a holistic view of urban planning we're only now reclaiming. As coastal cities today battle rising seas, Eridu's legacy floats a provocative question. What if the solution to our energy crises has been lapping at our shores for 5,000 years? Now let's journey from these tidal chambers to a city where knowledge wasn't stored in libraries, but etched into the very skin of its architecture. While Eridu's engineers worked with water's flow, another civilization turned stone into scripture, crafting walls that whispered wisdom to those who knew how to listen. The walls of Nineveh didn't just shield a kingdom, they whispered its wisdom. In the heart of the Assyrian Empire, King Ashurbanipal amassed a treasure far more valuable than gold, a library of over 30,000 clay tablets, each one pressed with the precise cuneiform script of scholars, astronomers, and poets. But this wasn't just a collection of scrolls tucked away in some grand hall. The genius lay in its distribution. Tablets were duplicated and stored throughout the palace complex, embedded in walls, stacked in hidden alcoves, even buried beneath floors, creating a decentralized network of knowledge so resilient, fragments survived fires, sieges, and the empire's own collapse. Modern archivists call this the original data redundancy, a concept now fundamental to digital cloud storage. What's astonishing isn't just the scale, but the foresight. These tablets weren't mere copies, they were curated. Scribes cross-referenced versions, noting discrepancies in margins, creating what we'd now call version control. Medical texts included case studies and outcomes, effectively peer-reviewed research centuries before the scientific method. And the subjects ranged wildly, from epic poetry like Gilgamesh to precise astronomical charts, legal contracts to culinary recipes, proving the Assyrians understood that a civilization's strength lay in the diversity of its knowledge. Cybersecurity experts today study Nineveh's model, noting how its physical decentralization mirrors modern blockchain networks, where information isn't stored in one vulnerable point but spread across many. Yet the true brilliance of these clay servers was their simplicity. unlike fragile parchment or magnetic drives, fired clay resisted humidity, heat, and time itself. Archaeologists have found tablets still legible after 2.5 millennia, their messages uncorrupted. In an age where digital data can vanish with a power surge or a hacker's keystroke, Nineveh's library whispers a provocative question: have we sacrificed durability for convenience? As we stand at the end of this journey through 27 forgotten blueprints, a pattern emerges. From Petra's hydraulic mastery to Nineveh's distributed knowledge, these ancient solutions share a common thread. They weren't just built for their moment, but for moments yet unborn. The Inca designed cities that danced with earthquakes, the Nabateans conjured water from stone, and the Assyrians engineered a library that outlived its language. Their genius wasn't in resisting change, but in anticipating it. Today, as climate change reshapes coastlines and digital revolutions redefine connection, these ancient whispers grow louder. What if the solutions to our most pressing challenges aren't waiting to be invented, but remembered? Perhaps resilience isn't about forging ahead blindly, but pausing to listen. To the stones of Sacsayhuamán, the echoes of Derinkuyu, the ink of Nineveh. They remind us that eternity isn't built in a single lifetime, but across generations, one thoughtful brick, one preserved idea, one shared lesson at a time. The future doesn't just demand innovation, it invites conversation with the past. And as these blueprints prove, that dialogue might be our greatest untapped resource. From the ingenious water channels of Petra to Rome's self-healing concrete, these 27 ancient blueprints reveal something profound. The greatest civilizations didn't just build for their own lifetimes, they engineered for eternity. Every solution, from earthquake-defying walls to floating gardens, was a conversation with the future, a message in stone and soil whispering across centuries. Today, as our cities groan under rising seas, scorching heatwaves, and crumbling infrastructure, these forgotten wisdoms feel less like artifacts and more like lifelines. Take water scarcity. While modern megacities drill deeper wells and build desalination plants at staggering costs, the Nabateans thrived in a desert with nothing but gravity and stone. Or consider urban heat, where glass and steel skyscrapers trap warmth like ovens. Shibam's mud towers passively cooled entire neighborhoods without a single watt of electricity. Even waste, a crisis choking landfills from Delhi to Los Angeles, was transformed by the Athenians into building materials, turning broken pottery into roads and walls. The lesson isn't just about technology, it's about philosophy. These civilizations didn't see nature as an obstacle to conquer, but as a partner to collaborate with a mindset we're only now relearning as climate disasters multiply. What's haunting is how many of these techniques were abandoned, not improved upon. Roman concrete, stronger after 2,000 years in seawater than modern mixes after decades, was lost to history until scientists recently decoded its volcanic ash recipe. The Inca's terraces, which enriched soil over centuries rather than depleting it, were replaced by industrial agriculture that now strains under erosion and drought. In our rush to innovate, we've overlooked the quiet brilliance of solutions already tested by time. Yet hope lies in the revival. Architects in Dubai study Shibam's passive cooling for net-zero skyscrapers. Japanese engineers adapt Machu Picchu's seismic terraces for tsunami-prone coastlines. Even Tenochtitlan's Chinampas inspire urban farms in food deserts from Detroit to Nairobi. The past isn't just a museum, it's a toolbox waiting for us to reach inside. So here's the challenge: as you walk your city's streets, look closer, that storm drain. It might flow smoother with Mohenjo-Daro's graded slopes. That apartment complex, it could stay cooler with Persepolis wind catchers. The answers to our most pressing problems might not lie in the next billion-dollar tech breakthrough, but in the quiet ingenuity of those who came before us. Which of these ancient wisdoms would you bring back? Drop your thoughts below. And if you've enjoyed this journey through the blueprints of eternity, hit subscribe. Because history isn't just about looking back, it's about building forward.